This is the World Satsanga on the 21st of March 2015. Okay, we're just going through the agenda. Actually, I've been tasked by Ulla to explain a few things from the history of God, which is, for me now, quite a long time ago. I didn't actually revisit the book or look at the question again, because what I wanted to do is to get the information fresh in terms of the additional explanation about the question. And I'll go over it as we go through, so that the information is not preconceived or contrived. This is actual channeled information. That'll help us. Let's have a quick look at the agenda. We've got time for the system to stabilise. Fine. Then I'm going to explain, and it might not actually take 20 minutes, but the idea is to explain what or who created the origin. And the participants' questions will form part of the information that Ulla sent me, which is basically looking at page 129 on the history of God, where I've got a table that briefly describes the dimensions and their functions, which is, if you like, a sort of a higher functionality of the structure of the multiversal environment, which goes into a depth which is not specifically, shall we say, scientifically proven, or could be scientifically measured in some way, because it's more about the essence of what those dimensions are rather than the actual structural components of what they are. And then there's some other questions that Ulla's put in there as well, which is actually quite good. And to be honest, I'm going to say that I have felt a little bit of trepidation about answering these questions, because I thought, well, I was going to do a written response, and I thought, no, this needs to be part of the Satsanga, because it is information which is given in very high level summary, but there hasn't been, shall I say, any level of depth associated with it. So I'm hoping I can do it some sort of justice. Okay, but first of all, let's talk about what or who created the origin. This information came out as part of the book that's about to be published, The Origin Speaks, and those of you who've managed to look at the blogs will see that I've now got a book cover for it. In fact, I've had to present it on both the existing and the new websites. The new website is called www.beyondthesource.org, and is pretty much a copy of the GuyStephenNeedler.com website, apart from the fact it's more dynamic and allows the ability for truth seekers to join the Greater Reality Forum, and for those traversing the frequency students to drop onto the TTF forum. So it's more dynamic in that respect. And also there's PayPal buttons to buy things like the correspondence courses and readings and healings. But so I'm having to put things out twice at the moment until things settle down. And the search engines recognise that there's more than just the GuyStephenNeedler.com website there. But nevertheless, the information will go out on both of those. So, in terms of what created the origin, again, it's part of The Origin Speaks. And what I was some time ago, Matthias, who organises the Slovenian workshops and the Slovenian Satsanga, asked me what was the most profound thing that came out of the book The Origin Speaks. And he asked me this question, driving me from the airport towards one of the workshops we were doing last November. And to be honest, I couldn't think of anything at that point in time. I was a bit stunned at the question. It was a bit sort of, wow, how do you answer that sort of question? What was the most profound thing? And then it came to me, and this is one of the reasons why it's in this workshop, in this Satsanga now, was that the origin, which you would think created itself or became intelligence energy in various different, shall we say, evolutionary ways, call it Darwinian if you wish, but the evolution of energy and how it can become sentient is also part of the Origin Speaks book. Indicated to me that actually the origin wasn't totally self-created or wasn't totally self-evolved in its own right. And I was absolutely totally surprised to find out that event space itself preceded the origin in terms of a certain level of intelligence. And that was quite a revelation for me, because he thought, well, hang about, if event space was held intelligence to the point of sentience, to the point of understanding itself, then why didn't event space become the origin? Why did it create the origin? And the answer is, it didn't actually create the origin as such. What it did is, he understood that there was a much bigger, because obviously event space is based upon various different types of choice, of duality, triality and quadrality, and the various different parallel conditions that can be created from a fractal perspective from those different decisions. And it knew it had its own, event space still has its own intelligence now, but not to the same level of sentience that it had in the distant past. And it recognised that there was a possibility, based upon its own various different levels of parallelism and the fractalizations of those parallelisms, that there could be another entity that encompassed all of the energies, not just those that were event space energies, that could become a much bigger, much more complete, much more robust, much more all-encompassing, much more expansive being. And so event space found out, through its own functionality basically, that there was a possibility of a much bigger being, a much more complete being, much more comprehensive creator available for whatever it was out there, available to be able to encompass all the energies that event space worked with and worked within, bearing in mind it's got its own energies. And so it looked at this and thought, as an energy, as an intelligent energy, I can continue the way I am, but there's a possibility of a much bigger, much more complete, much more omniscient, much more individualized, much more capable energy out there that can become sentient. And so it decided that rather than itself become, to all extents and purposes, polyomniscient in its own right, with limitations, it decided that it would sacrifice its own evolution, its own ultimate evolution into sentience, to allow this much bigger entity, an entity that could and will encompass all of the potential energies, frequencies and countless other components of that which it is out there, and become a much more holographically, holistically, omnipresent, omnipotent being. And so those event spaces that led in different directions from that, event space itself terminated. It effectively changed the path of every potential possible eventuality that could move away from the potential for the origin to exist. Not that he knew it was called the origin in those days, and in that period, I should say. And it ensured, by terminating these other event spaces, that the path was clear, and there was only one path that allowed the creation of the origin. It ensured that the origin was going to become sentient. It ensured that the sentience that was available, that was created, that could be created, would be capable of encompassing eventually everything that was, all there is, the absolute everything that's there. And so those opportunities that it had to become polyomniscient, or whatever you want to call it, it actively deleted, it actively removed. And so the understanding I had is, in essence, it almost removed its own presence from within the energies that is the origin. It almost destroyed its own sentience, its own beingness, to allow the origin to become that which it is now. So it recognised there was a much greater opportunity there, much greater being there, and that being was going to be the origin, in whatever way you want to call it, whether you want to call it the origin, whether you want to call it the absolute, whether you want to call it that which is beyond God. It doesn't matter really. It is that the remarkable thing is that something which could have been significantly larger in its own sentient condition or intelligence level itself, recognise that it could ensure that a much more integrated, bigger, much more capable sentience would come into existence and would stay in existence. And so really, from that perspective, you can look at this and say, in cold black and white figures, that event space created the origin. Because without event space sacrificing its own polyomniscience, if you want to call it that, it's highly likely that the origin wouldn't have come into existence itself. So it's wonderful to think that event space sacrificed its own potential because it recognised that that was limiting in front of the potential of something much bigger. And so, if you think about it in this way, if we can think in those lines ourselves when we're working in service to others, that if we see somebody or something which is more capable, and we can sacrifice our own progression for that, then isn't that the most wonderful piece of service that we could do for anything or anybody? That's amazing, isn't it? It's absolutely amazing. But event space itself didn't actually lose its intelligence. It is still intelligent. It is still in existence, of course. That's why what we sometimes call parallel universes or parallel conditions, whether it's localized, globalized, or universalized. It's all there still. So it must have thought at some point that it itself, in sacrificing itself for the greater good of a larger entity, that it would in fact also perpetuate itself as well, because actually event space is part of the structure of the origin. The interesting thing I found out though was that actually the event space almost destroyed itself in its desire to ensure that the much more complete being came into existence. So event space almost wasn't. It almost committed the ultimate sacrifice, total sacrifice of self for the benefit of a much greater good or a much greater opportunity. Okay, so it's explained I think it's explained in a much more eloquent way, by the way, in the book. And I apologise for it being a bit late. It will come out in about May or June this year. We've gone through the final editing stage, by the way. We get looking at the galley prints fairly soon. Now, others asked the question, did event space say where it came from? No, it didn't. However, in the process of understanding how an energy can become sentient in its own right, I understand that the energies that became event space followed a normal evolutionary process, associated with energy and how it can become self-aware, well, how it can become intelligent, self-aware, cognizant of self, and conscious of self, and sentient, and become a creator in its own right. It followed the normal evolutionary path, and the origin followed it's actually followed this normal evolutionary path. It's just that the event space ensured that it happened, as against playing a random part or a logical part that would sort of say, well, I'm here before you, therefore I'm going to survive and you're not going to survive. So that's what happened there. The next question is, so it recognised it was too slow by itself and made the origin to be faster in evolution. I don't know if it was faster in evolution. I didn't ask that question. It was certainly a logical decision, or a rational, or an empathic decision that the event space made, based upon its own predictive ability, okay, because that's what it can do. that it established there was something much greater in the offering, and that if it sacrificed itself, this would be ensured. So Marita's saying, does that mean that there could be something even bigger than the origin out there? Not that I'm aware of. My understanding is that the origin is all there is. However, to sort of answer your question, and
in the making, I mean, sorry.
Yeah. To sort of answer your question, the origin is only a small part of what it could be. Even now, it's a fraction of 1%. Yeah, I'm going to answer Marnie's question in a moment about dark energy, because I've got another answer for that, which doesn't include the origin, by the way. It includes the way we look at the physical universe. What I know is that the volume, or the area of polyomniscient sentient self-awareness that is the origin is, by and large, not totally complete. The sentience is dotted around. It can encompass and can use those energies that it's part of. And this is within let's call it a sphere of sentience. Beyond that sphere of sentience, the sphere of sentience having a structure, by the way, such as frequency, subdimensional component, full dimension, zone, continuum, and a whole bunch of other things which are identified in the Origin Speaks book, is just within this particular sphere of polyomniscient self-awareness. Beyond that, the origin knows that there's more of itself, and it's a little bit like us intimately knowing our own back garden, but knowing less and less about our surroundings as we move into the road that we live in, then the suburb that we live in, then the city that we live in, then the country that the city that we live in exists within, then the continent that our city lives within, and then the planet that our continent lives within, and then we go into the galactic conditions and the universal conditions. So in essence, it knows that there's something else out there, but it doesn't know it intimately. It doesn't know what it knows right now intimately, because we are part of that understanding. In doing what we're doing now, we are adding towards, as a result of working with our source entities, we're all collectively working towards increasing the origins polyomniscient self-awareness. But beyond this particular sphere, there is much more, and there's much more beyond that. And I'm told there's 12 more environmental levels with additional structure that's based upon the power of 12, beyond that which is currently the Origin's polyomniscient area of self-awareness. And within the book, it describes what's been going on and what happens. But in essence, in the far distant future, we all become source entities so that we can start to understand this new area that will be that the sentience that is the origin will be exposed to. So in terms of Marita's question, does that mean that there could be something even bigger than the origin out there in the making? The answer is no. It's purely an expansion of the sentience that is the origin into the rest of the energies that is absolutely out there. It's Bill saying it sounds like the event space became the origin. Absolutely, event space is part of the origin, without doubt. Going back to Marnie's question, sounds like event space is what physics calls the dark energy. I don't think, I'm just being told, dark matter versus dark energy. I'm just being told that what physicists call dark matter is simply an explanation for something they haven't got an understanding of. Let me explain. In the physical universe right now, when we use our telescopes, we can only see that which is part of this, that which we are currently observing through our naked eye, that being the physical eye, because all of our telescopes and everything else is based upon that visual range, plus things like X-rays and the infrared and the ultraviolet range as well. Now, if we were to move up the frequencies, like go to the fourth level, we would start to see more content within the physical universe, because there's more content on different frequential levels within this universal environment than there is within the first three, which is where we are right now. So when you start to move up to the fifth and sixth, you start to find that there's a lot more content within the physical universe. It's not so much a case of dark matter or dark energy holding the stars together. It's the fact that actually when you go right to the top in the 12th frequency level, the area that the universe uses is absolutely fully populated with various different, let's say, planetary systems, galactic systems, etc., 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 on all those different frequential levels. The ones that we're working on now from the Earth-based situation being one of those universal environments. And so, in effect, this dark matter doesn't exist because physicists think that dark matter or dark energy holds the universe together and stops it from expanding. And the answer is, well, it doesn't expand because it's created in a structure and a format that means it's not going to expand. There's no point in it expanding. But in essence, what we have is not dark matter which keeps things together, but simply the fact that the environment that is the physical universe is so fully populated with galaxies, etc., that there is no gap in between, and therefore everything stays together by its own, let's call it gravitational functionality. Okay. Well, I hope that explains and answers that question. I know it's potentially pretty inadequate as an explanation, but it does help. Another said, what are giant or massive black holes? Oh, that's an easy question. Giant or massive black holes are areas where locally high, where an area of a low. I'll start again. They're areas where frequencies overlap each other. So if we have a low frequency with a locally high area in contact with a high frequency of a locally low area, then that contact point is where we can traverse from one particular frequency to another, and that is what is a black hole or a wormhole. Okay, the ability to go through, to transport oneself with or without some form of transportation medium, either purely energetic or with a spaceship, for instance, then we can move from one to another by using these naturally occurring frequential overlaps, and it's a portal then into frequential portal, sort of, yeah. But the thing is, they're not stable, they're not static. Think of it in terms of the sea, where we have waves moving up and down. when a locally high frequency of a lower frequency, when a locally high area of a low frequency is in contact with a locally low area of a higher frequency, that connectivity, that interfrequential point, if you want to call it that, doesn't last forever, because other things around it can stabilise it or pull it down. Specifically, for instance, how we work within our universal environment. And so we can pass from one frequency to another through this wormhole, and then the wormhole can close or the black hole can close because there is no longer this overlap. And so therefore we could be potentially trapped in one frequency, which is not the frequency of domicile. And I said, black hole is a tiny galaxy that sucks up. In the history of God, I said in the history of God that a black hole is a tiny galaxy that sucks up very low frequencies. Yeah, I think that description was probably very infantile now, looking at it. It's more like the other way around. The black hole is an area of frequency that can allow galaxies to move through. So I think that there's a lot of these things that we start to work with that are, say, reasonable to work with based upon our level of understanding. But as our level of understanding increases, and the information we work with starts to increase as well, we start to realise that the information we had previously, although reasonable, wasn't particularly as accurate as it could be. And so I'm starting to understand that some of the information in the history of God, although it was the correct direction to go into when I wrote it, is now probably significantly out of date in a lot of areas. And interestingly enough, that's what Dolores Cameron found out when she was working with her work. When she looked back at some of the very first convoluted book and other things, she started to realise that the information she got in the past was nowhere near as accurate as it was in recent times, so to speak. So it's important to know that some of this information we're allowed to have in slight error, because although it's in error, it's still going roughly in the right direction, and it's allowing us to become, shall I say, more expansive as a result of that. Okay, I think Marnie's still typing at the moment, and so we can answer that question before. I think Marita's having a type as well. Before I go and try and answer this question, okay, so Marnie's saying, yeah, Marita's saying it's what we could understand at the time. Correct. Dolores likes to think in terms of baby food. When we're babies, we're only given milk, and then we're given baby food because of our ability to chew and our ability to digest. But as we get older, we are able to work with more solid foods, for instance, because we're starting to mature and start to work with that. And it's the same thing with the information we're getting right now. Mine is saying, back to 12 dimensions, how do these fit on the 408 base frequencies? Or are these dimensional subcomponents? Yes, they are they're the building blocks of the dimensions. The frequencies are the basis of everything. They are the absolute foundation of everything. So when we look at subdimensional components and the full dimensions, in every case, frequency is the basic building block there. So Marita said, so it's a progression. The answer is yes. Okay, so Marnie said the two listed on page 109, 12, yeah. Let's have a look at my email, just to check on that. So, on the email, other sections, dimensions 1, 2, and 3 are height, width, and depth. And Ulla said, i.e., you mean physical universe frequency bands, not dimensions. Now, the answer to that is yes. I think in the past that was not particularly accurate. What I understand now is what I mean, you have to think of it in terms of understanding. When I was writing the history of God, I was still thinking pretty much in the same way that most scientists were thinking. That we have 3 dimensions, and the 4th dimension was time, etc., etc., etc. I now understand that what mankind thinks of as dimensions are actually frequencies, and that dimensions themselves are a much higher structure within the multiverse. So, right. So Bill's saying, if time is an illusion, it is difficult to conceive that the origins creation is happening. It's happening. It's already happened. It's happening and it's already happened. And in fact, there's going to be a book called Beyond the Origin, which is where the origin goes beyond its current area, polyomniscient self-awareness. So yeah, everything has happened, will happen, and could have happened, and is completely happening right now. So the answer is yes. Time itself doesn't exist, and therefore the origins creation is both happening and has happened. So there we go. And others say, is it a matter of distance in space? It's all happening now. No, it's difficult to understand, but basically we have to think of it in terms of the way I was told to understand time or event space by Byron all those years ago, when he explained event space as being like a rubber band ball, where each event is represented by a rubber band, and each rubber band is in contact with each other rubber band, either through direct contact or through indirect contact, through the contact with other rubber bands. So we have to think of it in that way, in terms of how it's all interconnected now, it all connects to each other. Think of it in terms of a rubber band ball. Like a large Gordian knot. Yeah, you can think of it that way as well. Thank you, Ella. Like a large Gordian knot. Okay. What I'd like to try and do now, if I can do, is just go through these questions that others brought up from the page 129 from the History of God. What I'm starting to understand now is that the dimensions themselves, as part of a higher structure within the multiverse environment, also have, shall I say, an alternative function that isn't specifically to do with structure. It is the way the multiverse as an entity created by the source works on its own. And so the dimensions, although they will have a structural component to them that we would think, and in terms of what I've been working with in the past and now, has a structural validity to help mankind understand this, there's actually a personality associated with each of those different dimensions. And so when you look at the description, for instance, dimensions 1, 2 and 3 are height, width and depth. Actually, the first 3 dimensions create the essence of structure, is what I've just been told here now. The way forwards for the rest of the multiverse to exist upon. So although we've got the first dimension, which is in essence the foundation of the multiverse, which is where we are incarnated into right now, the next 2 form the intention for the multiverse to be what it is in its structure. Okay, so the idea of height, width and depth is to do with the essence of the maintenance of, or the intention of, that particular structural environment. And therefore those dimensions are the intention to be structured. When we look at 4th dimension, which is event space, which is called time, it's actually not time as we know it, it's events. So the fourth dimension represents the potential for myriad universal environments. It is the possibility of possible possibilities, or the possibility of possible possibilities. Everything that can exist will exist. Now, at the end of this satsanga, we're going to go through a meditation which is going to stitch all this together in some way, shape or form, which I've done with the Far East Satsanga, and I've done with the Slovenian Satsanga last week. I'm going to hopefully tidy it up a little bit for this particular Satsanga, but in essence you'll experience firsthand this total interconnectedness. Okay. Fifth dimension here represents thought given form. Thought given form is a product of intention, which is in turn a product of desire. So it's the idea that we can create. We are ultimate creators, and so although all these dimensions have got their own physical their own static structure that we work through, that we evolve through, that we can work with the different universal environments associated with them they have this flavour, this signature, this personality of what they are, what they're representing within the function of the multiversal environment. So Mario said, visualization with mirrors of reflecting into infinity coming to mind. Yeah, that's a good way of thinking of it. Very well done. Good. And so said, so the event space includes all events that ever happened, are happening now, will happen, and potentially could happen. Yes. Event space is a concurrent representation of everything that is, was, would be, should be, could be, may be, possibly would be, and all the different fractalizations of those particular statements. So yes, good. Thank you, Atso, and thank you, Marley. Good. Let's have a look at these last ones here. So the sixth dimension is belief. It is the knowledge of that which we are. Belief is that part of us which contains us, which makes us be here, which is in essence our reason to be in existence. We believe we're in existence, we know we're in existence, we work with that existence, and we evolve with that existence. Harmony is just very quickly go back to Atso's comment, like a video game written on a disc. Yes, except the video game written on a disc is linear, and the event space is not linear. It is convolution within convolution. If that makes any sense. Convolution within and without convolution. This is within and without convolution. To the power of 12, by the way. Now let's go back into this question here. So harmony, the seventh dimension, the signature associated with the seventh dimension is the ability for the structure to work within itself. The harmonization of it. The allowing of the frequencies to be in contact with each other when they are in contact with each other, when they can be in contact with each other. So it's allowing it all to be in contact with each other concurrently. It's the harmony side of it. There's no there's no abrasive content associated with the connectivity of two different frequencies. And so the seventh dimension in its structural position also has this stability called harmony associated with it. Dimension 8 is hope. Hope is based upon the desired intention to create something and the incomplete response, i.e. the lack of conviction that that which we've created will come into existence. And so hope there is a function of inevitable creativity, or should say the inevitable success of creativity. rather than hoping for it. It's actually a marker for inevitability in real terms. Dimension 9, interconnectedness. That is the connection between the lowest frequency and the highest frequency. Noting that every frequency within the structure of the origin and those structures beyond it are already connected to each other. So there is no such thing as linear connection. There's no such thing as compartmentalization. There's no such thing as being able to assess a particular energy in its function based upon what you were observing or how we can try to make it work for us. That means that basically if we have a marshmallow, for instance, that's in a box of other marshmallows, if that marshmallow doesn't have the same signature as other marshmallows, it won't be able to communicate with those marshmallows, and they will therefore be ejected from the bus, for instance, if we work in the bus, when the harmony disappears. Okay, therefore the interconnectedness disappears as well. Temporal stability is the ability for event space to freeze. It's to stop and recalibrate itself. It's to allow itself to evolve and allow itself to become strong and to become weak. It's a function of the number of times event space itself can recreate itself, and those other entities who create additional parallel conditions because they are higher creators. And so in effect, temporal stability is the stability of event space and its ability to work within that particular event space for as long as it can do without being affected by external event spaces. Okay, next one is 11, universal creation. Yes, that just basically represents, because the energies there are so close to source, clearly not as close to the origins they could be, but in essence this is to do with the source entity. It's saying that in effect any entity that exists within the 11th dimension should be able to create anything it wants to and negate the need for, shall we say, empty cars parked in car parks. And so it's all about the ability to create what is in existence, and that's it which is beyond what that's in existence, or that can be, or that can be connected to via the creative process. Okay, and last one's total awareness. Total awareness actually connects in quite nicely with dimension 11, because that's basically the ability for us at that level to be one with the source entity in a most profound way. So we can create it anyway now. We understand, we can communicate with source, with all of the structure of the multiverse, either its individualized components such as frequencies or the various different universal environments that can be created by one of these particular frequency bands, and the ability to also connect with those base resonant frequencies that are the origin, the connection between the origin and a partner, and that which is the partner. So, for instance, the connectivity all the way through, total awareness of everything that is there, and the ability to connect with it. So, dimension 12 is to do with being in connection with all dimensions at all times, and having the ability to change the location of the sentience within those dimensions as well. Right, got a few more questions here. So our lives are actually our movements from one event in event space to another event in event space, many times per second. Well, time doesn't exist, but yes, that's the right idea. And he's saying what looks like events happening out there is actually us moving from one event to another event. Correct. One of the things I've been doing recently with the level 3 students traversing the frequencies is teaching them how to move around the multiverse whilst keeping their eyes closed, and other exercises as well. But in effect, this means that when we move around event space, we sometimes get the impression that when we move around the university environments within the multiverse, we sometimes find out that we feel like we're moving in different angles, up and down, left and right, but also sometimes feel that the multiverse is moving around us. We're static and the multiverse is moving around us, and then presenting to us the particular environments we're going to travel to. So, okay. Right, I hope that answers the questions. If there's any more questions, then please do ask them now. Other than that, we can go to meditation, because the meditation we're going to do is going to be quite a good meditation, actually, and actually fits in very nicely what we've been talking about. Okay, just checking. So others say, so which is it, us or the multiverse which is moving? Both. Both. And that's who's actually got there as well. Yeah. You will find that when you're moving around the multiverse fast, you will experience various different inertial things, like your body's moving from left to right, up and down, left and right, like you might be going in a spiral, or going up and down the hill, or banking left and right in a plane, for instance. But in essence, some of us do feel that the multiverse rotates around us, that we're static and all of the zodiacs move around us, all the different galaxies move around us, and the planets that we're supposed to be working with come into sharp relief and to view, and we can literally step from one place to another place as a result of it. So I hope that helps. And others said, does that mean that we are in the centre of it all? The answer I've just been given is no, it's not. No, we are not at the centre of it all. However, we can create an environment which will allow us to be at the centre of it all, an individual one. And if you think about it, when we anchor ourselves to the earth, we stay on the earth, don't we? So everything does move. We do move around, but within the constraints of how long this rope goes into. Having said that, though, we can move beyond that, provided that which we're using as an earth is able to provide us with the right level of funds to pay somebody to help us. But in general, basically, we are able to move around the multiverse, or we can move the multiverse around us. Because we are master creators. We are master beings. We are literally smaller individualized units of our source entity. And therefore, there's lots of functionality we've got that we don't particularly recognise because we haven't exposed ourselves to it and used it. Okay. Well, I hope that helps. Some very good questions, and thanks for the clarification on the information on page 129 of the History of God. Thank you. What I'd like to do now is to go through a meditation exercise that actually, when I first did it, I found it quite exciting, and I still do. So what I'd like you to do is to sit with your feet flat on the ground in the small of your back in the right angled aspect of a chair. Put your palms uppermost on your thighs, close your eyes, and use your closed eye vision to focus on the location of the third eye, which is in between the two eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. Okay. And just close your eyes and let yourself become quiet and calm. So as normal, I want you to use your mentally spoken word or your visualization process to find ourselves in this white corridor. There's a stairwell to our right that we just potentially come from. Okay. And we can start to walk into town by walking on the carpet that's part of the side entrance and the walls on the left hand side, and the walls will come into play on the right hand side. And so we can walk down this white corridor. Walk down the white corridor. And at the end of the white corridor you see a lift door. Not the normal door that we go into, but you see a lift door this time. So walk down the white corridor. There's no rooms on the left hand side or the right hand side. We've no intention to move into these rooms, so they wink out of existence, so to speak. They stay in a different status. Okay. So walk down this white corridor. When you get to the end, you see this lift door. Push the lift call button. Let the lift door open and move inside, and you will find myself there along with Marita and Chris, Natso and Marnie and Ulla and Bill and John. So just see that we're all there. Move into this lift. So lift closes the doors, and I push the button with the number 204 on it. And the lift rises from 0 to 1, and then to 2, and then accelerates to 4, and 6, and 8, and 10, and then accelerates again at 20, and 30, and 40, and 50, 60, and 70, and 80, and accelerates a bit faster to 200, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, and starts to slow down to 190, 195, 196, 197, 198, 199, 200, 201, 202, 203, and finally coming to a standstill at 204. So we're all at this 204th level. So just take time to stabilise a moment because we move quite quickly. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask the lift to take us to the absolute dead centre of this 204th frequency. This, in effect, this 193rd, I think, simultaneous universe. Okay. And at this point, we're at the centre of this particular universe. I'm going to remove the lift from around us. So the roof becomes transparent and disappears, dematerializes. The front door dematerializes and goes to the same place as the headgear, the headwear that we had. Then we allow ourselves to move into the next phase, where the front doors dematerialise, the rear door dematerialises now, so the rear wall dematerialises, the right hand wall dematerialises, the left hand wall dematerialises, and the roof dematerialises. And so all we've got left now is the floor of the lift, and that starts to dematerialise as well. So we are now in this center point of this 204th frequency. Okay. This is the 193rd simultaneous universe. And what I've been told is that this point is a very important point. This particular location within the 204th frequency is a juncture. It's a point where all of the different frequencies from all that are within all the different subdimensional components and full dimensions within the environment that this particular location is, all coalesce, all interrelate, all correlate within. So this area within the 204th simultaneous universe that represents the 193rd simultaneous universe has total interconnectivity, total empathic content, total telepathic content. More importantly though, it allows us to be within the juncture of all aspects of the multiverse at once. Where we are now is a rare condition within the multiverse environment. It is where all of the event spaces cross. It's where all of the simultaneous universes cross. It's where all of the dimensions cross. It's where all of the subdimensional components cross. It's where everything crosses. This is the linchpin for all of the environments that are a multiverse. From this point you can experience everything concurrently. So with your closed eye vision, zoom into an area either in China or in the States or in India or in Taiwan or in Hong Kong or in Hawaii or in New Zealand, or in any other part of our physical universe. Everything exists here. Everything that is, was, could be, should be, exists at this location we are now. Whether it's the minute detail of the physical universe and the locale that we're in now, as I've just described, or whether it's the greater universal or multiversal environment. Everything that is coalesces here. Think of it in terms of the rubber band ball, where all the rubber bands all merge, or all in contact with each other directly at this location. So from here we can experience everything. So just close your eyes if you haven't already done so, and focus your intention upon experiencing the different environments that are available to us as a result of being at this center point, this juncture within the multiverse. 204th frequency representing the 193rd simultaneous universe. And therefore, from here, you can experience all events, all happenings, all histories, any level of creativity, destruction, or non-creativity, if you want to call it that, can be experienced in this location. So just allow all these events to wash over you, all these visualization processes in the physical world to wash over you, all the opportunity to experience deeper levels of knowledge that wash over you. Be aware that everything we do is experienced at this point now. So you may find that you're receiving a download, that you're receiving geometric images, or somebody speaking to you in a language you can't understand. Okay. That's perfectly fine. Use your concentration to experience all the different environments, different event spaces, all at once. Here you can experience all event spaces, all components, frequential components of the multiversal environment as well. This location within the 204th frequency, which is the 193rd simultaneous universe, is the juncture that holds the whole of the physical universe together, the whole of the multiverse together. At this point you can experience everything. So just be aware that you may be experiencing multiple realities concurrently, all at the same time, whereas previously in your earth state you don't. So we'll just stay here for a moment, allowing you to absorb and work with all these different things and get used to different environments that you have been working with and will be working with. And so don't forget to keep yourself alert, aware and awake. If you need to ground yourself, just use your intention to be grounded. Just feel the different event spaces flying around you. You can pluck them out of the sky and move into that particular environment, either in service or with just absorb, be alert, aware and awake. Every event space is presented to you. Every piece of structures is presented to you. Everything, even the cats are involved. Everything exists concurrently. Everything is happening concurrently. Experience those events. You may be experiencing a white screen in your mind's eye. That's okay, because there's too much going on to focus on anything. You may be experiencing the feeling of expansion, of being in multiple places. Again, that's a product of being at this juncture. This point where all event spaces and all universal environments overlap in this particular place. So just observe, absorb, feel this level of interconnectivity, expansivity, and beingness associated with it. This is as close as you'll get to omniscience. Being in multiple places at once, experiencing multiple realities at once. Not only are you experiencing the different frequencies all together, and the different multiversal environments associated with them all together, but you're also experiencing the different parallel conditions that can be created by those entities that work within them, again, all together. This is a similar feeling to being in communion with Source. This feeling of beingness, this feeling of connectivity, of knowingness, of being present everywhere, all at the same time. So I'll just stay here for a couple of minutes, just let you experience that state. Just know that you're alert, aware and awake, and you're part of the bigger reality now. You are the bigger reality. You're not just a person or a thing or an aspect or a soul. You are structure. You are event space. Just bask in this expansivity, interconnectivity, omnipresence, omniscience. Know that you can select any event space at any time from this position and focus in on it. Experience it firsthand as a particular potential possibility. Know also that your sentience can move around these event spaces and can move around this structure that you're associated with. So not just one of the 12 frequencies we thought we were working with, but all frequencies, all at the same time. Be polyomniscient. Experience polyomniscience. Omnipresence. Know what it's like to be the source in this particular way. Consciousness in all points, in all times, concurrently. We'll just stay another couple of minutes before we start to bring you back. Know what it feels to be disconnected but connected. To be everywhere and nowhere. To be focused on one place but be in the background of all other places. Just know that you are everywhere. Now you've experienced this, you can follow this particular meditation on your own at home. Don't forget to stay grounded or create your grounding in whichever way you prefer to use. And I will now start to bring us back, so I'm going to start to reconstruct our lift. So the floor of the lift becomes opaque again, rematerializing, and the back wall becomes solid again or opaque again and starts to materialize itself. The right hand wall becomes opaque and materializes itself. Left hand wall becomes opaque and materializes itself. The doorway at the front becomes opaque and materializes itself. And the roof above our heads becomes opaque and materializes itself as well. And so we move ourselves not necessarily away from the center point, we can still travel back down to the earth level. But just notice that we're moving away from the juncture and moving down rather than moving away from the juncture and then moving down. So I push the buttons and lift to the 0 level, the earth level, and lift goes down from 204 to 203, 202, 201, 200, then accelerates to 198, 196, 192, 194, 192, 190, then gets faster to 180, 170, 160, and accelerates again, 140, 120, 100, 180, 170, 160, 150, 140, 130, 120, 110, 100, then going down again to 90, and 80, and 70, and 60, and 50, and 40, and 30, and 20, and slowing down at 15, and 10, and then slowing down again at 8, and 6, and 4, and 2, and then 1, and then 0. We'll stay here a moment to stabilise because we've come down rather quickly. So the door opens, we can walk out, find ourselves back into our white corridor, and walk down the white corridor to the place where we first materialised into it. Both walls have got no doors, so it's just at the end of the corridor we walk, moving further and further away from the lift. So now, into the corridor, you can slowly come back into the room that you're in. Open your eyes slowly, take a drink of liquid or water if you've got some there.
So fucking gone.
Yeah. And come back into the room. Okay. And
Wow.
I don't know how you guys felt, but I felt as if I was all over the place. I was at all locations concurrently. Okay. Are you okay? You okay, Marita?
Yes, I'm fine.
Good. Chris, you here with us? Thank you.
No, awesome.
Thank you. Adso, you with us still?
Yeah, thank you.
Good. John, you with us? Okay.
Yeah, that was amazing. Good.
Thank you. Marnie, you back down with us?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks.
Good. Ulla? Good. Okay, I can't hear you, Ulla, so obviously you're, oh yes, Ulla just said yes, wow, it's a proof we are one with the source, fantastic, thank you. Bill, are you with us okay?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Good, fantastic. It's actually quite, I have to admit to being disorientated doing that. So my counting was a bit sporadic, it's because I was also in several different places and trying to work out which one I was in. The last time I experienced that, I have to say, was when I did a workshop in Kauai, Hawaii, and Marnie was there, and so she's experienced me losing coherence as well sometimes when I'm in various different places all at the same time. So it's very good. So if you do this meditation on your own with the recording after, later, for instance, just be aware that you can potentially lose a little bit of focus on where you are. Let's put it that way. Okay, everybody, thank you very, very much for taking part today. It's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you for the questions and the enthusiasm and the energy. And I think the next one's going to be probably the 25th of April. Okay. And as just said before we go, is that a point of singularity? It's a juncture. It's what I've been told to call the linchpin, where all frequencies, all event spaces associated with the multiverse all converge at one point. Okay. And happy Easter to you all. And as the Greeks say, Kalo Pascha, which means happy Easter. Thank you, everybody. And looking forward to working with you again next time. Namaste, everybody. Have a great day, or have a great evening, or have a great morning. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye.
Did you see the aliens in Crete?